for giving us the bullet points. We really appreciate it, Alex. For more, I want to bring in my guest, Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee. He is a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Sir, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Nice to be with you.
I want to get your perspective on these reports that you just heard about, specifically the fact that African Americans were targeted so specifically by this Russian trolling operation. You are in a district in Tennessee where almost 2/3 of your district is African American. I imagine that as you see these results, it really hits home for you and your constituents.
Well, it's just dirty tricks and efforts to suppress the vote that have been done by state governments throughout the South, and that's why we need to look at reinstating the Voting Rights Act. We've seen it in North Carolina, Georgia, and we've seen other examples in other states. But what the Russians did was a very well thought out campaign to help Donald Trump win the presidency, to tamp down on Hillary Clinton's #1 support group, African Americans, to bolster her #1 ideological opponent, Miss Green, and then to promote Donald Trump. And I knew that they were doing this. We all knew they were doing it because Mr. Mueller had indicted these folks for their actions, but we didn't know the extent of it. And the massive number of tweets and Facebook posts and other social media efforts on YouTube are astounding. And in my opinion, there's no way that they didn't influence enough voters to turn the election for Donald Trump.
You think Donald Trump won because of this Russian operation?
I think it's a combination of the Russian operation and Comey's reopening the investigation within the last 10 days, 2 weeks of the election of Hillary Clinton. And he feels terrible about it. I know he thought he was acting in the most appropriate and most rectitudinous fashion, but he was wrong. And the result is, whatever his intent, that plus the Russian activity definitely was what put Hillary Clinton under in the electoral vote. You know, she won the popular vote by 3 million votes, but she lost Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania close, and the Russian involvement and/or the Comey investigation changed the election. There's some information that there was an email distributed to the Justice Department, possibly by the Russians, that helped cause Comey to go forward because it suggested Loretta Lynch was not actively pursuing the matter, as it was later called, against the Clintons, and he thought that because of that he needed to go forward, and that kind of got this whole investigation and Comey's involvement into it. But there's been much information not proven yet because it's still within a classified matter, and I'm not privy to that classified information, but that the Russians might have sent this because nobody who was on the email chain knew anything about it.
And you were certain the Russians sent that?
Well, I'm not certain. It's been written in several areas. I've read it, and it's classified. I asked Mr. Comey about it.
I mean, you've read it open source, like you've read it in newspapers?
Yes, in newspapers, and mentioned it to James Comey, and he couldn't make a definitive comment about it. He still thought it was legitimate, but nobody in the email chain, which included Debbie Wasserman Schultz and one of the Clinton, Amanda Renteria, had ever participated in it. They didn't know Loretta Lynch. There was no way any of this would have happened. So it appears to me to be a ruse.
Jim Comey is testifying today, as we speak, before your committee. A second day of interviews. The Republicans leading the committee brought him in before Democrats take over in January. You called for him to resign because of his handling of the Clinton email investigation. You just said you feel like that was a contributing factor. I do wonder, though, after you had very harsh words for him in 2016, now that you see him as this sort of foil for Republicans, you see all of these things that have transpired, his firing, he's been outspoken, so more to the benefit of Democrats than Republicans. Do you have a different assessment of that, looking back, on whether he should have resigned?
Well, I said it. He should have resigned back in October, and it was on CNN. I'm not sure if it was your show or another, but I said at that time when asked that I thought it could cause Hillary Clinton to lose the election. And I think it did, and James Comey said he's just horrified at the prospect that he could have had anything to do with it, but he did. And that was wrong to get involved. I understand his position, but it was wrong. And I thought,
would you have wanted him gone, though,
for
Congressman, under the Trump administration, or do you look back and feel like there was utility in having Comey there at the FBI at the time?
No, I think he has this high sense of rectitude and tries to call them as he sees them, and generally he calls them right. But in that case, he went against the policy of the Justice Department and acted kind of as a lone ranger. And afterwards, though, he was a perfect person to lead the investigation and to stand up to Donald Trump and not back down when he asked him not to be involved with Flynn and let Flynn go, and to back off of the investigation, to asked him to publicly say he had nothing to do, wasn't involved with Russia, and wasn't a suspect. So, so I think Comey, after that, was a good person to be in that position, and he was fired because Trump wanted to get rid of him because he wouldn't give him his clearance and continued to pursue the Russia matter.
All right, Congressman Steve Cohen, thank you so much for being with us. Up next, no